The movie starts in Istanbul, Turkey, where MI6 spy James Bond and his partner Eve Moneypenny are on an important mission. At a safe house, Bond finds fellow agent Ronson, who is badly hurt from being shot. Someone has stolen a crucial hard drive that contains the names of all NATO agents working secretly inside terrorist groups. This information is top secret and could put many lives at risk if it falls into the wrong hands. Bond tries to help Ronson stop bleeding, but time is running out. Moneypenny tells him to go after the thief right away. After putting on a quick bandage, Bond leaves Ronson and gets in a car with Moneypenny to start chasing the criminal. The bad guy, a French killer for hire named Patrice, gets away in a black Audi. During the fast car chase, they get directions from Tanner at MI6 headquarters through a satellite connection. Tanner tells them that a medical team has been sent to help Ronson, though his chances of living are very low. Things get more intense. Bond takes control of the car, purposely crashing into Patrice's car, which makes the enemy car flip over and causes chaos on Istanbul's streets. Patrice, crawling out of the wreck, starts shooting wildly at the police blocking his way before stealing a police car. Not giving up, Bond takes a motorcycle and keeps chasing him through narrow streets, past shops, and even across the rooftops of the Grand Bazaar, Istanbul's oldest and busiest market. Back at headquarters, their boss M watches over the operation. She stresses that the list of agent names must not fall into enemy hands because it's a life or death situation. Meanwhile, Moneypenny continues chasing in her car, guided by Tanner's satellite and security camera surveillance. Following Tanner's directions, she takes a different route and manages to block Patrice's path. Under pressure, Patrice jumps onto a moving freight train. Without thinking twice, Bond jumps onto the train too, and the fight continues on the fast-moving train cars. Moneypenny reports to M that Bond and Patrice are now fighting on top of the train, not inside it. Though surprised, M orders them to keep chasing. On the train, Bond climbs onto an excavator on one of the cars to get closer to Patrice. That's when he gets shot in the shoulder, but he keeps going. Patrice disconnects the train cars to slow Bond down, but Bond makes a dangerous jump to the next car. When asked about his condition, he calmly says that he just changed cars. The close fighting gets worse on the speeding train. Moneypenny realizes she can't chase them any further. She tries to find a clear shot to stop Patrice, but her position is risky. The chance of missing and hitting Bond is too high. The train is about to enter a tunnel and their opportunity is running out fast. M, understanding how critical the situation is, gives a firm order to Moneypenny to take the shot despite knowing the huge risks. Full of uncertainty, Moneypenny finally fires. The shot hits Bond. His body gets thrown from the top of the train and falls into the rushing river below. With a shaking voice, Moneypenny reports that the agent has been shot. The MI6 control room falls into shocked silence. Hard drive. The signal is traced to a location within London and more specifically from inside MI6. M immediately orders them to return to headquarters. When they try to cut the connection, the data instead gets rerouted back into MI6's internal system. The signal surprisingly comes from M's own computer. On Tanner's screen, a message appears with M's face on it, along with the words, "Think on your sins." Just as panic sets in, M's car is suddenly stopped by police officers. M and Tanner get out to investigate. Before they can understand what's happening, a massive explosion rocks MI6 headquarters. They watch in horror, fully knowing that their agency has just been attacked from within. 6 MI6 staff members are killed as a result of the bombing. At their funeral, M, consumed by grief and anger, promises to find out who was behind the brutal attack. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Bond is still alive. He had deliberately used his presumed death to disappear and enjoy a quiet retirement. While relaxing in a remote location, he sees a news report on television about the explosion at MI6 headquarters. The attack is being classified as an act of terrorism targeting the heart of British intelligence. The report states that 6 people have been killed and many more were injured with no identified suspects so far. This information shakes Bond and he knows his time to return has come. He travels back to London and waits for M at her house. When M arrives and enters, she is shocked to see Bond still alive. He admits that he had taken advantage of his presumed death to enjoy a quiet retirement, but he is now back and ready to work. Tension rises when Bond brings up M's decision to have Moneypenny shoot him. M defends herself, calling it a difficult decision made for the sake of the mission and the lives of the other agents. Despite feeling betrayed, Bond realizes that MI6 is under attack and that he is needed. He states that he is ready to return. M explains that he will have to undergo a series of tests to prove his fitness as an active agent. Before he leaves, she tells Bond that his apartment has been sold and his belongings are being held in storage. She replies that this is standard procedure for single agents who were presumed dead. She also stresses that Bond cannot stay at her house and Bond decides to look for a hotel the next day. Bond and Tanner go to the new MI6 headquarters, which has been moved to an old underground bunker from the Churchill era. Tanner explains that the previous attacks were very sophisticated. The perpetrators had hacked the building systems, activated the gas, and stolen all the confidential files. They even knew M's schedule and the exact time she left the building. Bond concludes that the goal was not to kill, but rather to send a message of intimidation. MI6's new headquarters is on an ancient 18th century route and now serves as a temporary operations center. Tanner reveals that Britain is being attacked through cyberspace. Bond is to meet Eamon Mallory, the chairman of the Intelligence Security Committee, the next day. Bond then undergoes hours of intensive physical training, which includes running, push-ups, shooting practice, and various other fitness tests. During the training, Tanner reports given to him in the morning. Bond, who is waiting for Tanner, meets Moneypenny. They exchange tense words about the shooting incident in Istanbul. With regret, Moneypenny apologizes. Bond, however, responds casually, saying that only 4 of his ribs have been cracked and no vital organs were affected. Moneypenny explains that she has been temporarily removed from field duties and is now assisting Mallory in the transition period. She hopes to one day return to the field. Bond asks her to tell him in advance if that happens. Tanner soon arrives and invites Bond to meet with him. Before entering, Bond teases Moneypenny to keep moving so it would be harder to shoot, a subtle joke about the shot that missed in Istanbul. In M's office, which is damaged by the explosion, Bond notices the only thing that is still intact. It's a ceramic dog statue. He jokes that the object has survived, to which M replies with a sarcastic comment about his taste in decorations. Shortly afterward, Mallory enters the room. He introduces himself as the chairman of the Intelligence and Security Committee and says the Prime Minister is directly involved in handling the crisis. M then informs him that Bond has passed his tests and is back on duty. However, Mallory questions Bond's decision, asking why he didn't choose to stay dead and enjoy a quiet life, a rare escape for an agent. Bond responds by asking if Mallory has ever served in the field. Mallory replies that one doesn't need to be a field agent to understand that the world of espionage is a game for the young. He expresses doubt about Bond's physical condition and abilities after the serious injuries he has suffered. Bond answers firmly that it doesn't matter to him whether he is fired or sent on duty. M defends Bond, stating that if Bond says he's ready, then he's ready. When Mallory accuses M of being sentimental, she replies that as long as she leads the department, she will determine who the agents will be. Mallory eventually accepts the decision, but warns Bond not to be careless. After Mallory leaves, Tanner shows Bond the analysis results of the bullet fragments that have been lodged in his shoulder. The results are surprising. The bullets are made of military-grade depleted uranium, a material that is expensive, rare, and used only by certain parties, including Patrice. Tanner identifies Patrice as a mysterious hitman who has no official identification and is currently being hunted by the CIA for his involvement in the assassination of the Yemen ambassador. Intelligence information indicates that Patrice will be in Shanghai in 2 days for his next mission. M immediately orders Bond to go to Shanghai, observe Patrice's movements, find out who has hired him, and most importantly, avenge Agent Ronson's death. Bond nods and answers firmly with pleasure. As Bond leaves, Tanner asks M, surprised if Bond has passed the test. M replies that he didn't. Bond then goes to a painting exhibition. There, he sits thoughtfully in front of a painting of an old broken ship. A young man approaches him and starts a conversation. It turns out he's the new section chief, Q, who initially underestimates him because of his young age, joking that he looks more like an apprentice technician than a tool expert. But Q confident, room with large windows. He sets up his sniper rifle and takes a shot, killing a man who was sitting in front of a painting in the building across the street. As soon as the shot is fired, Bond attacks. A brutal fight ensues in the dark room, illuminated only by the colorful neon lights of the city outside. When Bond finally corners Patrice and nearly has him dangling from the top floor, he catches his hand and tries to question him about who is behind the stolen list of MI6 agents. Patrice remains silent, choosing instead to let go of Bond's grip, falling to his death. From a distance, Bond notices a mysterious woman watching the incident from a window in the building opposite. She is Séverine. Bond checks Patrice's belongings and finds a casino chip that indicates a destination in Macau. At the same time, M receives a message from the hacker revealing that the agent list is being decrypted. The first 5 names have already been announced online, with 5 new names to follow every week. The message also includes a personal taunt to M: "Think of your sins." M immediately contacts Tanner and orders him to withdraw all the agents whose identities have been exposed for their safety. A few days later, Bond arrives in Macau. Moneypenny comes to his room to deliver an urgent message. Bond is surprised, having not ordered room service, but Moneypenny replies that she is delivering an urgent message from M. She explains that the first 5 agents' names have been published online and that this will continue weekly. A sadistic game, as Bond calls it. As Moneypenny shaves Bond with a traditional razor, they share playful banter. Bond praises the old methods, which he says are still effective, and also expresses his doubts about Mallory. Moneypenny explains that Mallory has a strong military background. Bond then continues his mission at a luxurious casino in Macau. Following the directions from Patrice's chip there, Moneypenny disguises herself in the crowd and stays in communication with Bond via a hidden earpiece. She warns him not to touch his ear and gives him information about the 3 exits and the many dark corners in the room. They have a chance to joke with each other, with Bond complimenting her dress and Moneypenny quipping about the extra arms. When asked if he likes to gamble, Bond replies that he doesn't like to take risks. Bond exchanges his chip at the cashier and is given a suitcase containing the money plus a bonus. His gaze then falls on the elegant woman he has seen in Shanghai, Séverine, for €1,000,000, and then immediately leaves to catch up with Séverine. Meanwhile, Séverine waits for Bond at the dock, but he never comes and the Chimera ship departs without him. Aboard the ship, Séverine goes to her cabin to freshen up. Suddenly, Bond appears from the shadows and approaches her. Bond teases Séverine, saying he prefers to see her without her dress. The two then fall into an intimate relationship before facing the danger ahead. At the same time, Mallory and Tanner watch a news broadcast about the public execution video of Captain Hussein, an MI6 agent. Hussein is one of the 5 agents killed in what is being called the biggest security breach in British history. The Prime Minister defends MI6, but the opposition begins to attack. Mallory turns off the television and condemns the war as incomprehensible and impossible to win. M rejects the politicization of the situation, confirming that 3 of her agents are dead. Mallory informs her that the Prime Minister has ordered an investigation and that M must be present. M criticizes the decision as a form of insult in broad daylight. Mallory emphasizes the importance of transparency in a democratic country. M is certain that their enemy comes from within, someone who knows the system from the shadow world, the same place as Bond. The next morning, Bond and Séverine sail to a remote, long-abandoned island off the coast of Macau. However, upon arrival, they are immediately arrested by men working for Séverine's superior. Their hands are tied and they are taken to the island, a former city that has been evacuated after a mass panic created through digital manipulation. Séverine explains that her superior, a former MI6 agent named Silva, took control of the island by spreading false information about a chemical plant leak, causing the entire population to abandon it overnight. She warns Bond about the danger they are facing. After apologizing, she is taken away. Bond is then taken to Silva, who greets him with an allegorical story about rats trapped in a drum who ate each other until only 2 were left. He equates himself and Bond to the last 2 rats, products of a cruel and manipulative system. In a dialogue full of sarcasm and psychological pressure, Silva reveals that he had once been M's most trusted agent, but then was betrayed. He also shows Bond a detailed psychological evaluation that declares Bond unfit for duty. And yet M has still sent him as if Bond were just a pawn to be sacrificed. The peak of Silva's cruelty occurs when he brings Bond to Séverine, who is now tied up and has a bruised face. Silva places a glass of scotch on Severine's head and challenges Bond to shoot it. Bond intentionally misses. Silva then takes over, shooting Severine straight in the head, killing her for her betrayal. Bond simply jokes that it's a waste of good scotch before suddenly attacking and incapacitating Silva's men. As Bond points his gun at Silva, the man sneers, challenging him, asking what Bond can do alone. Without answering, Bond shows him a small radio, a device that quietly emits an emergency signal. Moments later, MI6 helicopters appear and surround the scene. Silva is stunned and is finally arrested and taken back to England. Upon arrival at MI6's temporary headquarters, Bond and Tanner meet Silva in a holding room. In a tense meeting, Silva greets M with bitter sarcasm, bringing up his past as her most trusted MI6 agent. He accuses M of betraying him, describing how he was tortured for 5 months without air and still kept state and M's secrets. He says that this suffering has made him realize that it was M's betrayal that has truly destroyed him. Silva admits to having tried to end his life with a cyanide capsule hidden in his teeth, but the poison only burned his internal organs without killing him, leaving him with permanent scars. He claims the only reason he survived was to look M in the eye one more time. M remains cool and professional, stating that Silva will be transferred to Belmarsh prison and tried. When Silva insists that his real name, Tiago Rodriguez, be used, M refuses, stating that Silva's past will soon be erased along with his future. After that, M orders Bond to meet Q and investigate the contents of Silva's computer to determine whether the list of agent identities has been leaked. Before Bond leaves, M explains that Silva used to be a talented agent in Hong Kong, but has illegally broken into the Chinese network. In order to save the other 6 agents, M was forced to hand Silva over to the Chinese. The decision saved many lives, but left a deep mark on Silva's heart. Tanner reminds M that the parliamentary session is due to begin in 30 minutes, but for M, cracking the contents of Silva's computer remains a top priority. Q tries to decrypt Silva's computer. He discovers that the system is equipped with high-level protection, including a file storage protocol that will automatically erase all memory if forced into operation. Q states that there are only 6 people in the world capable of creating such a complex system, and he is one of them. With confidence, Q opens the system and finds what is known as the Omega site, the deepest part of the system with advanced encryption. The codes inside are polymorphic, meaning they can change shape every time a hacking attempt is made, making it like a Rubik's Cube that resists being solved. When Bond sees the suspicious data that says Granborough Road, he realizes that it's a clue. The long-closed underground station is likely part of Silva's escape plan. After Bond enters that name as a key, the system displays a map of London's underground lines, confirming that the data is not random, but an escape route. Suddenly, a message flashes on Q's screen: MI6 own systems are now being accessed by Silva's computer. Q realizes they have walked into a trap. Silva has infiltrated and hacked the MI6 system from within. Realizing the danger, Bond rushes to the holding room, but Silva has already escaped. With Q's tracking assistance, Bond immediately goes to the subway to chase Silva through underground corridors, past service doors, and down deserted tunnels. This isn't a spur-of-the-moment escape. Silva has planned everything, intending for MI6 to open their computer so he could use it to launch his full-scale attack on the agency. On the train tracks, Bond comes to a locked service door as the sound of an approaching train grows louder. In a desperate situation, he manages to break down the door just in time and continues the chase in the underground passage. He arrives at a busy station during rush hour, surrounded by a crowd of passengers. Q has difficulty tracking Silva until he finally finds him disguised as a police officer. Q immediately orders Bond to get on the train, which is already moving. Bond chases it, jumps, and manages to get inside after an officer opens the door. On the train, Bond realizes the route is leading to the location of the parliamentary session. He immediately orders Q to contact Tanner and secure M before Silva arrives. Upon arriving at the next station, Bond sees Silva get off the train and immediately chases after him. They face off in the underground passage and Bond finally catches up with Silva. However, Silva mocks him and shows him an explosive device he has disguised as a radio. Suddenly, a massive explosion erupts at their location. Seconds later, a train crashes into the destroyed section of the tunnel, nearly hitting Bond. Silva escapes in the chaos and is picked up by a police car to continue his mission to Parliament. Meanwhile, as Bond is pursuing Silva, M, accompanied by Tanner, is at a hearing with the Ministry of Defense Intelligence and members of the House of Lords. The hearing is opened by the minister, who questions MI6's competence in handling the national security crisis following the data leak and agent deaths. M calmly explains that steps have been taken and that the responsible party has been arrested. However, the minister continues to pressure M, arguing that the failure shows the incompetence of her institution. In the midst of the argument, Tanner receives news from Q that Silva has escaped and that Bond is chasing him. Tanner discreetly informs M, but she refuses to be evacuated, choosing to continue her testimony. The minister continues to criticize M until Mallory interrupts, asking that M be given the opportunity to make a direct statement. Once permitted, M delivers an emotional speech. She reveals that the world now faces enemies who are no longer tied to countries or ideologies, but are individuals who move in the shadows. She questions whether the public truly feels safe and emphasizes the importance of having agents like those in the 00 division, her division. Silva, who has infiltrated the Parliament building, overpowers several guards and approaches the courtroom. At the same time, M, still speaking before the forum, is quoting a poem about courage and an unyielding spirit. Just as she finishes, Silva bursts in and causes chaos. He points his gun at M, but before he can shoot, Mallory pulls her away, taking the bullet instead. A chaotic shootout erupts in the courtroom. Bond, who arrives shortly after, also fires at Silva. He then throws his gun to Moneypenny so she can help manage the situation. Mallory, despite his injury, grabs a gun from a downed officer and begins to shoot as well. In the tense situation, Bond shoots the gas canisters in the room. A small explosion and thick smoke fill the room, obscuring Silva's vision and giving them a chance to move. Silva eventually escapes the Parliament building. While Moneypenny evacuates everyone from the courtroom, Bond pursues Silva. He picks up M in a car, which surprises her. Bond explains that they have to take the game to the next level, stop following Silva's lead, and make Silva chase them instead. Though initially hesitant, M agrees to Bond's plan, but insists that no one else be involved. Bond immediately contacts Q, asking for help in creating a false trail, a scheme so they can disappear from all tracking systems except for Silva's. Q realizes this is an unofficial mission, but agrees to help. Since all of MI6's cars are fitted with trackers, Bond trades their vehicle for his personal Aston Martin DB5. M criticizes the classic vehicle, calling it flashy and uncomfortable. But Bond drives it to his childhood home in Scotland, Skyfall. He explains that this location gives them a significant advantage as he knows every corner of the estate while Silva does not. Meanwhile, at MI6 headquarters, Q and Tanner monitor Bond's movements. They create false signals to lead Silva along a specific path. Q explains that the trap has to be precise. If it's too faint, Silva won't see it, and if it's too obvious, he'll know it's a trap. Mallory comes in and overhears their plan. But instead of stopping them, he fully supports the strategy. He orders Bond to be directed via the A9 route, a direct road that can be monitored by traffic cameras. When Q expresses concern about the Prime Minister's reaction, Mallory coldly replies that they need not worry and orders them to continue. Bond and M have disappeared, bringing the game to an area they control, and MI6 arranges for Silva to be led in their desired direction. After a long night's journey, Bond and M arrive at Skyfall. Bond's childhood home is old, but still stands strong in the Scottish Highlands. They are greeted by Kincaid, the Bond family's old groundskeeper, who is surprised but relieved to see Bond alive. After Bond explains that they are being hunted, Kincaid unhesitatingly offers his help. Despite Bond's warning that this is not his fight, they begin checking the available supplies. Most of the weapons have been sold after Bond's family presumed him dead, except for an antique rifle belonging to Bond's father and some old dynamite in the horse stable. Despite their limited resources, they are determined to survive. Bond and Kincaid test the rifle outside the house, reminiscing about Bond's childhood. Kincaid then shows them a secret passageway to the chapel that was once used as an escape route. It's the same place where a young Bond had hidden for 2 days after the death of his parents. With limited time and resources, they prepare the house for battle, boarding up windows, setting booby traps, and assembling explosives. As night falls, M blames herself for everything that has happened. However, Bond reassures her that she is only doing her job. Their conversation is interrupted by a light in the distance, a sign that the enemy has arrived. Kincaid, the groundskeeper, declares that he is ready, having been so even before Bond was born. The battle begins. Bond, who is hiding on top of a car, opens fire first. Kincaid shoots from inside the house while M sets off the explosive traps they have prepared. The fight is brutal and some of Silva's men manage to get into the house. When one of them shoots at M, Bond intervenes, killing the attacker. M suffers a minor injury and admits she is not a skilled shooter. Silva soon arrives in a helicopter carrying more men and heavy weapons. Seeing their critical situation, Bond quickly devises a new strategy. He orders Kincaid and M to take cover in the kitchen while he attempts to hold them off from outside. Bond fires at the helicopter, but the enemy responds with a hail of gunfire. Realizing they are completely outmatched, Bond instructs Kincaid and M to escape through the secret passage to the chapel, their final refuge. Bond stays behind to face the attack. The house is hit by gunfire and explosions, but Bond manages to escape. An increasingly aggressive Silva orders his men to burn the house down and blow up Bond's Aston Martin. In the chaos, Bond sets up a propane gas cylinder as a large trap and then goes down the secret passage as planned. Shortly after, a massive explosion destroys the house and Silva's helicopter, killing most of his men. From a distance, Kincaid and M watch the flames light up the night sky. Silva, who survives, sees the light from Kincaid's torch and follows it. Before Silva can reach the chapel, Bond chases him to the frozen lake. There, he is held at gunpoint by Silva's man. In a tense situation, Silva expresses his exhaustion with the chaos he has caused and orders his man to shoot Bond. But Bond reacts quickly, shooting the ice under their feet until it breaks. They both fall into the freezing water, and in the fight below the water, Bond manages to strangle his enemy to death. Meanwhile, Silva arrives at the chapel where M and Kincaid are hiding. He calmly enters, stating that everything has to end there. When Kincaid appears, Silva shoots at him but misses, then points his gun at Kincaid. Silva approaches M, realizing she has been badly injured. He shows a disturbing emotion that seems full of despair. In a soft yet urgent voice, he invites M to end everything together. He presses his temple to her head and directs his own hand to press the trigger, begging M to free them both with the same bullet. In a state of mental breakdown, Silva sees death as the only release. But before the trigger can be pulled, Bond suddenly appears and throws a knife at Silva's back. The weapon gets stuck right in his body. Silva can only let out a soft scream before finally falling and dying. Bond immediately hugs the dying M. In a soft voice, M asks why he has taken so long. Bond replies briefly, trying to calm her down. Realizing there is no more time, she says that she has done one thing right, she has chosen Bond. She dies in his arms as the night passes in silence. After M's funeral, Bond stands alone on the roof of the new MI6 headquarters, looking out at the city. Moneypenny approaches him and admits that she doesn't expect to see him there often. Just as Bond thinks she will return to the field, Moneypenny explains that she has chosen to step down after the shooting incident in Istanbul. She then gives Bond a porcelain dog statue, a legacy from M, that has been specified in her will. Bond sees the object as a message to continue his work in the field, not from behind a desk. He thanks her. They go down to the new office, which now belongs to Mallory, who has been promoted to the position of M. There Bond and Moneypenny officially introduce themselves. Tanner greets them and says that M wants to see Bond. Bond goes in and asks about Mallory's injured arm. Mallory replies that his condition is getting better and then immediately says that there is still a lot of work to be done and asks if Bond is ready. Bond replies confidently that he is ready. Don't forget to subscribe, like, comment and share with your loved ones. Thanks for watching.